All right, everybody, here we are. We are going to be doing a live spoiler discussion about the Rise of Skywalker. I've been dying to talk about this, and I've been trying to figure out what the best way to approach this video was. So I'm going to do it in a live stream and then just let it live on the channel. I have so much to talk about. I just saw it for the second time again last night, and I will say, if you saw my review, I gave it a 3 out of 6, which I was pretty disappointed in the movie after the initial screening. And let me just say that after the second screening, it sat a little better with me, but I still wasn't in love with it. It still kind of breaks my heart a little bit. So here's what we're going to do. If for some reason you join me when I'm doing this live, feel free to drop into the chat, throw questions at me, or, share your frustrations with the movie. You can talk about them. Otherwise, I'm just going to kind of rant, and then we'll let this video live on my channel as my spoiler discussion so that others can jump in and listen to what I thought about the movie. Now, let's begin with... We'll just start from the beginning and go through. That crawl. That crawl was embarrassing. From the minute I read in the first few lines, Palpatine has spoken, I thought that was such a lame way to get Palpatine inserted into this movie. I fully expected something that on screen that we would see or hear, not just reading it, Palpatine has broadcast a transmission or whatever it was. So I did not love that. And that whole crawl, it was almost like we were reading a crawl from a continuation of a movie that we didn't see. Like all this other stuff happened. So I just don't know what to think, Sorry, I had a little bit of a tech glitch there. And then we get right into the first few sequences, because literally it's like boom, 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 boom. All this stuff happens so quick. We've got Kylo Ren and his Knights of Ren on a planet, slicing and dicing up the baddies, and with an epic, John Williams score in the background, and he pulls out his little Sith Wayfinder. Fine, cool. He gets in his ship, he flies right into the, I don't even know what you call it, the black hole, the gravity well, whatever it is that takes him to the Emperor's evil planet. What was it called? Oxygol or Exegol or something. I can't remember the exact name. Hey, what's up, DJ Diddy? Yeah, the crawl was super short and frustrating. So anyway, okay, so Kylo is in this other dimension, and this is an interesting, not dimension, but a different part of the universe that's in hide. It's like the Sith world where they hide. All you Star Wars experts know better than I do, but and right away we get the Emperor, like right away, like we're not wasting any time, and we see a lot of really interesting things here. I really dug how. Initially, I dug how the Emperor was talking to Kylo Ren, and he said, I have been every voice you've heard in your head. And you hear the Emperor's voice, you hear Snoke's voice, and you hear Darth Vader's voice. That was a very cool, nice touch. And he comes around the corner, and, he sees all of the little Sith minions at work, and you see a vat full of Snoke clones. I hated that so bad. I did not like that. But what can you do? DJ Diddy, do you think this movie suffered because Disney was trying to make things better with fans? 100%. I feel like, a lot of you don't like Rian Johnson, but he had said earlier, a few days ago, that when you pander too much to fans, you're not going to make a good movie. And it's not that I don't think this movie isn't a good movie. I had some fun with it, but it just frustrated me beyond bounds. I'll get into it a little later, but the last 10 minutes of this movie is just like, it was like handing out here you goes, like, here you go, here you go, here you go. Hope you're happy, hope you're happy, hope you're happy, hope you're happy. And I was like, come on. It just felt so petty and so cheap. Yeah. Ugh. I can't. That was, I think, for this movie, my biggest complaint was all the pandering. There was so much. It was like one long butt kissing session. Come on, please come back. Love this movie. Love this movie. We forget about The Last Jedi. Silverhawk, another Terminator franchise. Okay, I'm not sure what that comment's about, but okay. Let's see. We've got. I was gonna try to put the chat up, but I'm not figuring that out anywhere. So, DJ Diddy, I had a lot of fun, but liked The Last Jedi better because it actually did something different. Dude, I am 100% with you. And there's a lot of hate out there for The Last Jedi. In fact, I'm not sure if there's a lot of it. I just think the few that don't like it really make it known. But that was one of the things that I really appreciated about The Last Jedi was that Rian Johnson was bold enough to do something different. And, I feel like up until that point, Star Wars movies in general have been so predictable. Like, things would be coming down the line and you would say to yourself, oh, this is going to happen, and sure enough, it would happen. But with The Last Jedi, dude, you couldn't predict any of that stuff. And although I may not have agreed with a lot of the story or plot points that he took, what am I trying to say here? The direction he took some of the characters or even the story, I didn't agree with some of them. I really appreciated the fact that he was trying to kind of reinvigorate the franchise, do something different. So anyway, a lot of this, and then it really felt like, going back to kind of the beginning of the movie, it really felt like adding the Emperor so soon into the movie was just kind of a, here you go, here's a familiar character, love him. This answers your question about who was Snoke, what was Snoke's origin. Everyone wanted to know what was up with Snoke after he died. That was one of the biggest complaints about The Last Jedi was, well, now that he's dead, it's not like he even matters. What's the point? So, throwing in Palpatine and his Jar-O Snokes that he could just throw out there, whatever it was that he did, that answered, I don't know if it satisfied a lot of fans, but it answered a lot of their questions. I will say it was really cool to see Ian McDiarmid again as the Emperor. I love Palpatine. He's one of my favorite villains of all time. But again, it just felt so forced in this movie, putting him in here. And the fact that he was like plugged into a machine and kind of rotting, it was a cool approach and a cool look, but it just did not feel like the natural progression. It didn't feel like this is where the story should be at this point. Silverhawk says, Terminator made sequel after sequel with fan-based memorabilia. Star Wars is doing the same thing. Next is Top Gun. Watch, yeah. This, it's part of the plan. They got to make money, so they just make stuff. And that's kind of what it's getting to. They make stuff and they hope people like it. I've come to terms with the movie, though. Like, even though I didn't absolutely love what it did when it was all said and done, there's a line in Solo, a Star Wars story where Beckett is basically telling Lando, like, this is the plan, this is what your rate is going to be, you're coming with us. And Lando just kind of accepts it, and he sticks out his hand, and he's like, I don't agree with it, I don't like it, but I accept it. And that's kind of how I feel about this movie. I'm accepting it as the final chapter. It hasn't broken Star Wars for me. I still love Star Wars with all my heart. And, this movie does have some great moments. Like, don't get me wrong, I definitely teared up at a few scenes. I even found myself kind of cheering to myself during a few sequences. So it wasn't complete. It wasn't a complete disaster. I just overall wasn't really happy with the whole turnout. DJ Diddy, I was so disappointed when I heard they were doing the Dark Empire storyline with the Emperor clones. Yeah. And the fact that, I don't know, I don't want to jump all over the place. I kind of want to have some order to this thing, but we'll go right to the end. I absolutely hated the ending of this movie. I felt like for a Star Wars movie of this as a third chapter in this trilogy, and like the overall final chapter of the whole saga, I felt like it was kind of anticlimactic, you know, like literally all it came down to was Rey embodying all the Jedi and Palpatine embodying all the Sith, and him just shooting his Sith electricity at her while she did this. That's it. I mean, yeah, it was cool, but that was it. I was like, come on, man. What? I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't that. Uh, Juan says it almost did something, but if the Last Jedi ended with the same light side rebels against the dark side empire. Oh, I see what he's saying. Yeah. He was talking to the other guy in the chat. So the beginning of the movie was just a jumbled mess. It felt like they were playing catch up. Like it almost felt like because JJ didn't do the second movie and he was picking up from where Rian Johnson left off, it was almost like JJ tried to cram in the first 20 or 30 minutes of this movie what his sequel would have been to The Force Awakens. And then it finally hit a stride where it kind of felt like its own storyline. You know, this movie moves. There is no like points where it drags. I think it has the most lightsaber fights of any Star Wars movie. It's just it moves, and the first part moved so fast. I was kind of like, "Come on, give us a minute to like grasp what's happening here." You know, maybe give us a little bit of a more of an explanation about where Palpatine has been, or where they think he has been, or you know, he's been. They thought he was dead, but you know, give us something more to chew on. Yeah, we didn't get to catch a breath, and you know. Let me speak on some of its strengths, because I do believe it has some strengths, and there's some things that I really loved. First, I feel like Finn, Poe, and Rey finally got to be together, and I feel like them being together was great. Their chemistry really reminded me of the original trilogy chemistry between Han, Leia, and Luke. They play off each other so well, very funny. You know, like the bit when they find out Poe used to run spices, and they're all giving him a hard time, and he's like, "Oh, what? You used to be a stormtrooper? Oh, you used to be a scavenger?" And it was, you know, great. There were great moments like that. I really appreciated what they did with the characters. So that was one of the strengths that I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed. There were a few fan service moments that I liked. I thought visiting the Death Star ruins was really cool, and how they kind of revisited the throne room and played some of the same John Williams music that you heard in the throne room during the Return of the Jedi. And then what they did with Leia, I feel like it was decent. I mean, definitely a difficult thing to do. How else? You couldn't not have her in the movie. And a fully CGI version of Leia would have been rubbish. But obviously, a lot of her lines really felt kind of sandwiched in, or almost felt like the actors' lines leading up to whatever she was going to say pointed her in a certain direction to say certain things. But yeah, the dynamic between Rey and Ben is awesome. They really stood out in this movie. They finally got to have their moment that some people wanted. I don't know if I necessarily wanted that moment, but it was a good one. Let's see, it would have been great early on. Let me switch to this. We'll switch to this so you guys can see some of these chats. Oh, the chat's not there. Look at that. That's not good. Here. Huh. Oh well, we'll go back. Forget it. That's why I didn't want to mess with this too much. What would have been the great early on, because watching Return of the Jedi, feeling of Luke and Leia and Han. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It it was very apparent that in by watching this movie that there was no long-term plan. There was no roadmap for movie 1, 2, and 3. So that was frustrating. You would think with such a big franchise under your belt that you would want a really hard, written in stone kind of plan of what you were going to follow, the paths, the steps. But it was so painfully obvious that they didn't have that. Let's see. Kyle says 1 through 6 is my canon. 7 through 9 feels like a teenage fan fiction. In a lot of ways, it does feel a lot more fan fiction-y than anything else. Personally, I'm putting out a ranking video in the next day or two of the Star Wars movies, but the sequel trilogy all three of them are my least favorite Star Wars movies in the Disney era. You guys might not like hearing this, but Solo: A Star Wars Story is actually my favorite Disney era Star Wars movie, followed really closely by Rogue One. And a lot of that has to do with because I'm so closely tied to the original trilogy. I have so much love and admiration for those movies. And Solo and Rogue One both feel like they're part of that era. So that's really why I love those movies. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about... I was talking about Carrie Fisher. Sorry about that. I was going to say, I thought how we had the moment in The Last Jedi where she uses the Force to pull herself back into the ship. Now, I liked that they showed her using the Force in that movie, but I hated how they did it. I like to call her Space Mary Poppins because she's flying like 2 miles through space to get back in the ship. I thought that was a little bit much. But I did like in this movie how they did there was the nod of her training Rey, kind of serving as her Force master. I thought that was a nice touch. Also, that little flashback of young Luke fighting young Leia with the lightsaber, I love that. Even though the CGI wasn't great, I really liked that they kind of confirmed that she had trained as to be a Jedi and she completed her training as a Jedi. GVS Hevis or whatever, I don't know your name. He says hating on this movie. I'm not hating on this movie. I'm just talking about some of my frustrations with it. I have accepted it, and I did have some fun with it. After this, I will say, the second viewing again, I enjoyed it a lot more than I did the first time. But it was really cool and then the whole play with Leia's lightsaber at the end, that was awesome. I really feel like they kind of gave us a lot with Carrie Fisher for what with Leia for the amount of time we had her. So that was really nice. Juan says, yeah, I even thought that when they make her float, killing Akbar off screen, by the way, when Carrie yeah. That's one of my least favorite moments of The Last Jedi. I hate that part. Okay, the MacGuffin chase, character fake deaths. Okay, we got like a little bit of a MacGuffin or treasure hunting movie here too, which I thought that was kind of cool. We haven't really seen that in a Star Wars movie, and in some ways it kind of reminded me a little bit of Indiana Jones, a tip of the hat to Indiana Jones. Is that something that fits in Star Wars? I mean, I would say yeah, but maybe not necessarily in this story. It did feel a little bit out of place. That whole bit where they went into that snake pit, that kind of felt strange. But, there were some really funny moments in that snake pit. I really loved the Rey pulls up her lightsaber to kind of light the cave, and in that same moment, Poe flips his flashlight and turns it on, and it's like a lightsaber. It's like the lightsaber we used to play with as a kid. We would get in like a smoky by the campfire and hold the flashlight by the smoke, and it would look like a lightsaber. I don't know. That's what that reminded me of. But yeah, so we have the knife. Now the knife, that was a cool thing because it was kind of had the Sith totems on it, and I liked what they did with 3PO being able to read it and translating it, but having it be forbidden to share that with anyone else. That was kind of a cool little thing. But once she got to the Death Star and they had that like Goonies moment where she lines the knife up and pulls the little thing out, that was totally. That reminded me of Goonies. It was like Star Wars Goonies. But yeah, the MacGuffin thing was kind of a nice little change of pace, but I don't know if it necessarily should have been in this chapter of the Skywalker saga. Yeah, that was okay. Here, we'll get into this now. Just a little bit. The Ben Skywalker, the Ben Solo thing. So, and the title of this movie. And I don't know why, but the last scene of the movie, not the sunset, that was okay. I can forgive that. But just Rey saying, "I'm Rey Skywalker." I rolled my eyes so hard. I was like, oh, what, now people can just name themselves whatever they want? I hated that. I really could do without that line. What did you guys think of that? I mean, she's a Palpatine. Obviously, she's not going to go around saying, "I'm Rey Palpatine," because that would be like finding out you were Hitler's kid and telling everyone, "Oh, I'm so-and-so Hitler." Yeah, don't want to do that. But to just take on the Skywalker name, I thought that was kind of a crazy thing to do. I did like that she had made her own lightsaber out of her staff. That was a really nice touch. Yeah. Well, Leia is Organa, but that was her the family who took care of her. So technically her she's Anakin's kid, so she's Leia Skywalker technically. If you want to be technical by blood. So let's see, what else can we talk about here? How far did I make it in I'm just kind of going through the beginning so they get to the base camp, wherever, I can't remember what planet it's on. It's very Yavin-esque. You've got a lot of the characters from A Force Awakens there. That moment when they land the Millennium Falcon and Poe's like, "It's all on fire, it's on fire, it's all on fire." That was very funny. That kind of reminded me of something that would happen to Han Solo. And at the same time, Rey having damaged BB-8, they were kind of like, "But you damaged my droid, but you damaged my ship." That was a fun interaction. Yeah, that's so funny. Okay. So this ends with the Skywalker family tree. I mean, Luke and dead and yeah, I mean, everyone's dead unless there's another secret Skywalker out there. They're all gone. You know, it was funny because when Ben came out of the pit after he had been tossed in there by the Emperor and Rey was dead, for a moment I thought, "Oh man, Kylo's the future now," or Ben Solo's the future. That got me really excited. I feel like that would have been a better ending, but it was kind of nice that he sacrificed himself to bring her back using the Force, because you really think about it, Kylo Ren, who would rain all this destruction on the galaxy as Kylo Ren, it would be a kind of a hard sell for him to show up and be like, "Oh, hey, I'm a good guy now. Trust me. I know Rey's dead. She can't really vouch for me, but trust me, I'm a good guy." That's kind of a hard sell. But nonetheless, they could have done something different where he goes on the run, he goes into hiding, but he is good still. That could have made for a very interesting ending. I did, once he did revive her and they had their intimate moment, that's another thing I did not love. Because as far as I could tell, guys, I don't think they really had those kind of emotions towards each other throughout this franchise. And the way I saw that, it was clearly pandering to all the Rylos out there, all the people that want them to be a couple. And so, again, was not a big fan of that. And, okay, you guys mentioned it here in the comments. As far as the Force Ghosts go, gosh, it was really cool to hear all those other Jedi. Some of the ones that I heard where obviously you had Obi-Wan, Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan. You had Yoda. I heard Qui-Gon Jinn. You had Anakin Skywalker as Hayden Christensen's voice. Then I also heard, I think I heard Ahsoka. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I heard Ahsoka. And there's one more from Rebels. What's his name? Yeah. That was kind of cool. But then I thought, if we've heard their names, and why couldn't we just see their first Force ghosts briefly? Like, how cool would it have been when they were, she's crossing her lightsabers and he's shooting, and he's saying, I'm all the Sith, and she, right when she says, I'm all the Jedi, how dope would that have been if all the Jedi Force ghosts appeared behind her, like pushing the Force? Oh my gosh. I get goosebumps thinking about that. And I'm like, if you're going to do the voices, why not just swing for the fences and give us all the Force ghosts? And that's another weird thing. Like when they, at the very end, when Rey looks at Leia and Luke's Force ghost and says, La Rey Skywalker, it would have been a nice touch if Kylo was standing right there with them. It's Ben Solo, because he's dead now. And, he's with his mom. That would have been a nice touch. But, that's just nitpicky. So I went back to the end again. I keep doing that. I keep skipping to the end. Let's see here. Oh, yeah, here we go. So they keep talking about this First Order spy. And, again, this was another thing where it was like, it just drops in our lap. Poe and Finn are captured. They're about to get executed by some First Order troopers, and General Hux is with them. And he's like, I'd like to do it myself. He kills the stormtroopers. He says, I'm the spy. That just felt way too easy. Like, I was not a big fan of that. And I liked Hux. I did laugh at that moment when he said, I'm the spy. But it didn't feel earned. And all his whole explanation was, oh, I don't care if you guys win. I just don't want Kylo to win. Okay, that makes sense. But why couldn't we have seen maybe one scene in the movie where it kind of reminded us of his hate for Kylo Ren? Because in The Rise of Skywalker, we don't really see it at all. There's like one or two scenes in The Last Jedi, and there's a couple in The Force Awakens where you kind of see the rivalry, but not in The Rise of Skywalker. So it wasn't really fresh in our minds. Oh yeah. And yeah, they do make it apparent that Finn is Force sensitive. There's that moment when Rey dies after killing Palpatine, and Finn like stops on the Falcon, and he's like, "No, she's gone." I always got a sense he was a little bit Force sensitive, even in The Force Awakens, when he has the lightsaber, and there's little tiny hints here and there that he might have some intuition or some insight into the feelings of the Force, but that didn't bother me at all. I really I thought Finn and Poe, I didn't have very much to complain at all about their story arcs. I just feel like I loved Kylo Ren's story arc, and I felt like Rey's, the finality of it could have been better. That whole I'm Rey Skywalker, that felt like someone spoon feeding fan service. Like Disney being like, here you go, she's technically not their daughter, but everyone wanted them to be their daughter, so yeah, now she's their daughter. So yeah, I really enjoyed Zuri. Yeah, I can't remember the name of the planet, but where Poe's old friend from the Spice Running days, Zuri, and Babu Frick was great. Another scene stealer. That whole scene with C-3PO, that was a really good scene. I liked that a lot. Again, this was like they were on this planet, and it felt like it was the 6th or 7th planet we'd seen in the movie, and it was only like, half hour in. It was just, this movie was just like boom, 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 boom. It was so hard to keep up with. So if you guys have only seen it once and you really didn't like it, go see it a second time, because knowing what to expect actually helps you better understand what's going on. So, I mean, it's funny because this is how Star Wars is. Even The Last Jedi didn't sit really right with me the first time I saw it. And then after I saw it again, I started to like it a little bit more. But I definitely didn't feel as... I definitely had this one at a lower level of disappointment than any of the other previous Star Wars movies. Yeah. Okay. So the whole revelation of Palpatine. Oh, here's one thing I really like that they did. So in The Last Jedi, they established that Rey and Finn can force communicate, or force FaceTime, as I like to call it. And we learned that in one of their conversations, when this is, again, Last Jedi, Rey's outside in the rain and they're talking, and then at the end, Kylo's got some wet hands. So that kind of hinted at, there is some form of connection or touch that can happen when they have this form of communication. I really thought it was cool how they had their lightsaber fight during one of those conversations. That was a really cool thing to do. When he was trying to figure out where she was, and she was trying to keep him from knowing where she was. I thought that was a really cool thing. And then, of course, the big payoff of that whole Force FaceTime is when Rey handed him the lightsaber behind her head when he was surrounded by the Knights of Ren. That was very satisfying. Let's see here. Do you think the guy from The Lord of the Rings was totally off-putting? I was like, where are you doing here? Yeah, that's the problem with some of these Resistance characters. It's like, why did they have him and they had Rose Tico and they didn't use her at all? Why couldn't she just have been whatever his character was? Like, I like that actor, but he felt out of place. I don't know why he was there. Oh, Cage, they don't tell you where she got her lightsaber, but you assume she made it because the hilt definitely resembles her staff. And it's the very end. It's all assumed, I guess, but I thought it was pretty cool, and it was yellow. That was kind of a nice touch. We haven't really seen a yellow in live action before. Let's see, where are we going from here? I have notes, but I'm kind of jumping all over the place. With the fake out of Chewie's death, dude, I was like, when, the Force bolt lightning comes out of her hand and blows up that transport, I literally was like, that's how they're going to do Chewie? That she accidentally kills him? And I'm sure everyone thought that. And it was such a relief when he wasn't dead, but that was a bummer. That was fake out death. Oh my gosh, I was really... Bro, I Wookiee raged. They can't kill Chewie. I mean, think about it. From a business standpoint, he's the perfect Star Wars character because literally anybody can play a Wookiee. They just got to put the suit on. But yeah, that was a dirty trick. That was a low blow. And then, what did you guys think of the new First Order general? Clearly, that's another thing. He was clearly added to the cast because they needed somebody for the Emperor to order around after Kylo Ren left, and after I'm trying to blank of his name now. I just said his name, Hux. After Hux was blasted, I thought he did a great job. But again, it was a character that was kind of like, had they flushed this script out better, they didn't need that guy at all. Well, next for Star Wars is, we don't know yet. I mean, we have some talks of Rian Johnson's trilogy or a few films. And, I mean, honestly, to be frank, I think with The Mandalorian's success, I bet you we're going to get a lot more Star Wars series. It's more likely we get more Star Wars series than we do big budget movies, at least in the near future. But, I prefer Star Wars in movie form only because, it's more spectacle. There's nothing better than seeing that big marquee and crawl on the big screen. But, we'll see. Time will tell. So, I'm trying to think here. Huck's dead. Okay, and then they go from Rey finds out she's a Palpatine, devastated. Oh yeah, okay. Then they go to the Death Star planet where they find a whole troop of stormtroopers that defected. I thought that was a pretty cool thing, just like Finn, but they were a whole group of them. So that character, again, the new character, what was her name? I don't remember her name, and I've seen it twice. She did a great job for the time she was in the movie, but again, like, why? We needed her on that planet where the Death Star was, but beyond that, there was no purpose for her. Let's see here. Yeah, Isaiah says the movie looks and sounds great, but the insane plot holes killed the experience for me. Yeah, it looks really great, and the John Williams score is always great. Honestly, if John Williams didn't score that movie, I'm sure we would have all hated it even more. Oh, speaking of John Williams, did you guys see his cameo? He was in this movie. Right before they go and meet Zuri Bliss, they're in some cantina, or right before they go meet Babu Freak, they're in a cantina, and the bartender has an eye patch with a beard. That's John Williams. They do like one quick full shot of him. So finally, he's in a Star Wars movie. His face is, not just his music. That was kind of cool. Yeah, okay, there we go. Lando, that's a good one to talk about. First of all, I have to give credit to them for they made Billy D. Williams look so spry and like full of energy. Now, I don't know if you guys watch many interviews of him now. I mean, he's up there in the years, and he definitely doesn't come across that spry and energetic. But they did a great job of selling that. And when they first run into him, that was a really fun little nugget and twist. Very Lando-esque. It was almost like in Return of the Jedi when he has that armor on in Jabba's palace and kind of this, I'm here, don't worry. That was kind of a cool thing. Again, though, I feel like they kind of underutilized him, and it was almost more like a glorified cameo than anything else. And that moment, even though it was so good to have him in the movie, the moment when he appears at the end, when he appears with that whole fleet of people, I guess you call them, because they're not really military or anything, it felt like that was meant to feel more epic and grand, but it didn't feel that epic or grand to me at all. I don't know if I'm the only one that feels that way, but I was kind of like, yay, Lando's here, I guess. I don't know. Again, I wish they would have utilized his character a lot better. God, you guys, I'm going on so many tangents. I'm forgetting on my notes where I'm supposed to be going here. So, we got Zuri Bliss. Let's see here. Hold on. Yeah, Cage Gaming says it will be a different family lineage. I hope so. I mean, they've kind of squeezed every last drop out of the Skywalkers. Even though it's an iconic name and no one will ever forget, I kind of hope they go a different direction. In fact, a lot of people love the Jedi elements of these movies, and I think they're cool, but I definitely prefer the scum and villainy, that ground level blaster, scoundrel level. That's my favorite part of Star Wars. And I think that's another reason why I loved Solo: A Star Wars Story so much, and even Rogue One. I mean, that's very ground level scum and villainy also, espionage. I'm so excited for the Cassian Andor Disney Plus series because, I mean, are you kidding? K2SO, he's like only the best droid in Star Wars. But so I hope if they do another trilogy, it's bound to have Jedi in it, which I'm fine with, but it would be cool if they put more of a focus on, like a group of bounty hunters. Or I always thought it would be cool when they were doing the spin-offs, the one-off movies like Solo, and then they quickly changed their mind. I always thought it would be really cool if they did like a Jabba the Hutt Solo. spinoff, just about Jabba the Hutt. It was almost like the Godfather of Star Wars. That would have been pretty cool. I don't know. There's a vast amount of lore and characters, and there's so many things they can do. They just got to do it right next time. They just got to do it right next time. Yeah, Isaiah, we were talking about the Force Ghosts earlier. That was a missed opportunity. They needed to show them. They would have been so awesome. I think that would have helped me like the ending more if they did that. So, where were we? Stormtrooper group go on the Death Star. Okay, so we get to the lightsaber fight outside on the surface of the Death Star. Very visually stunning. I loved everything about that scene. Even up to the part where Leia knows it's time, and the only way Rey will win is if she distracts Ben and long enough for her to take him out. That was a very cool way to do that. And honestly, when that happened, I was thinking, well, if Kylo's dead, what's going to happen now? I mean, that really changes the dynamic of things. And, of course, they introduced earlier on that she can use her Force to heal. And isn't it interesting, by the way, that almost concurrent at the same time, we're seeing Baby Yoda use the Force to heal too. So it's almost kind of like people can't moan and complain about, oh, the Force doesn't do that, when the cutest face in the entire Star Wars canon is doing it. No one's going to complain about it when he does it. So now it's okay for Rey to do it. Anyway, that was a side tangent. But I thought it was very cool how then she used the Force to heal him. And in a way, because they talk about how she's using her life force. She's transferring some of her life force to the other person or thing to help heal them. So in a way, it's almost like her life force cleansed his dark side and kicked it out of his body. That was kind of a cool touch. Did you guys notice when she did that his scar also disappeared? Just a kind of a subtle thing, but yeah, that was cool. But the scene that really got me, and I think it's my favorite scene in the whole movie, is when Ben imagines talking to Han Solo. And I know some people don't like that, but I thought that was mwah. That was chef's kiss amazing. And, I was thinking about it. There's only certain things they could have done that would have properly redeemed Kylo Ren. And this definitely is one of the best ways, because it's kind of a full circle. There were so many things in that interaction with Han that rhymed or were parallel with the same interaction he had with Han right before he killed him. I mean, even some of the same gestures, like Han touching his face, or when Kylo Ren says, "I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I can do it." Oh man, I'm getting chills thinking about it. But that scene was so good. I loved that so much. And then, of course, from that point, Rey takes his TIE fighter and leaves him behind on the Death Star ruins. Yeah, Isaiah, it was the reversal of him not deterring. Exactly. She goes back to Octo, where Luke had been hiding out for all those decades, and her grand plan was to do the same thing. She destroys the ship, and she's like, I'm going to stay here. And right before she goes to throw her lightsaber in, boom, Luke Force Ghost. That was really cool. I like that. What did you guys think of that? A little bit of nitpicking. I felt like Luke's hair was like a foot longer than it was when he died. I could be wrong, but I was like, does Force Ghost hair grow? Anyway, then Luke comes out, and okay, so I liked the Luke Force Ghost showing up, but there were some really aggravating things that happened in this scene, and they all really felt like kind of an F you to Rian Johnson, because a lot of things Luke said, and I can't specifically think of any, but a lot of them were like, what I did in The Last Jedi was wrong. I shouldn't have thought that way. It was wrong. And I just kept thinking, come on, man. That's not cool. Let's see here. Juan, Dagobah the X-Wing out of here. Yeah, that's another thing. I actually like that touch where she's like, "Well, I have nowhere to go. How am I getting off the ship?" And in the Last Jedi, they do establish that his X-Wing is down there in that little cove. So when he pulls it out, that whole scene is so cool because it's almost exactly the same as in Empire Strikes Back when when Luke's like, I can't pull it out, and Yoda pulls it out for him. Luke's like making the same pose and face, and he almost kind of looks at the camera with like a little snarky grin, like, look, I'm doing it, I liked that. I thought that was cool. So Rey gets in Luke's old X-Wing. It was so great to see one of those old X-Wings, and even hear the sound it makes. Like, I didn't realize that the newer X-Wings sound different than the old X-Wings. So that was kind of a nice little touch. And then she takes her Sith compass and flies to Exegol. Is that right? I think I'm saying it right. While transmitting her, location to the Rebel Alliance. And, at this point, of course, Leia's dead. Everyone's in mourning. They don't know what to do. Poe has become general, and he asked Finn to become general too. They have it's like the required meeting that they have in every Star Wars movie where they talk about what they're going to do. And, they plan to just follow Rey and take out the antenna and do it. Let's see. Let me hit some comments really quick. Kyle says, this movie was so bad I literally had to leave therapy with a friend for like a couple of hours. I had to have therapy with a friend for a couple of hours. 1 through 6 maybe Rogue One and Solo may be canon, but honestly, I don't know. Also, the Force healing causes problems to the old movies anyway, story-wise. Yeah, I mean, it does, but at the same time, it could just have been something that they didn't learn how to do. I don't know. I'm not... If you really want to take a fine-tooth pick comb through everything, you can probably find a lot of problems like that. But I didn't mind it. Hey, if Baby Yoda can do it, then I think anybody can do it. So let's see here. Back on Exegol. So, okay, let me talk a little bit about the Emperor's Sith world in Exegol. So, first of all, I don't know, did anyone else get this vibe? But I totally got this vibe. When they revealed in the beginning that Palpatine was hooked to this giant machine with a giant robot arm hooked up to the top, I automatically thought of David Lynch's Dune. Like, that totally looked like some kind of contraption you would see in Dune. And, it was okay. I did like the planet design as far as that lightning that made almost that like screaming sound. That was really cool. That was a nice touch. And I liked how there was like almost no color. It was like gray and white and black. That was cool. Those thousands or millions of Sith minions, whatever they are, that was a bit much. I mean, if they're going to have that many there, they should at least give us a little more insight or a better look at a lot of them, because that was a little strange. And then we go to the Emperor just snapping his fingers and all these Star Destroyers coming out of the ground. Okay, that's fine. Where my big problem is like within a day. I mean, it couldn't have been more than a day because, this movie seems to happen within a short period of time. Within a day, they've got entire legions of troops in red armor. All the officers are wearing new garbs. It's like, were they sitting there spindling all these new, I don't know. It just felt like it was a real quick turnaround to have everyone in different clothes and different, stormtroopers and all that, the whole nine yards. Again, nitpicking. But I think the part I maybe disliked the absolute most in this movie was when they revealed that every Star Destroyer had a planet-killing weapon. Seriously, another Death Star? Come on. I mean, that's New Hope, Empire Strikes, or Return of the Jedi, The Force Awakens, and now that's 4 Death Star movies. Come on. I really hated that, like, really bad. They didn't need that at all. I feel like just the threat of a fleet of hundreds of ships, that's enough intimidation. They don't need to all have planet killers on them. I hated that so much. But enough about that. So we go to cut to Rey arriving, her interaction with Palpatine. That was a little interesting. A lot of the things that were said were okay, I guess. But where I started to get really confused was, and I mean, at first it made sense. Strike me down and I will join your body and become more, whatever. That made sense. And it kind of played in a line with, what happened to Obi-Wan in A New Hope. But what really bothered me was, okay, she's like, I'm not going to kill you. I refuse to hate. I won't kill you. But then when he gets, Kylo comes and they do the whole thing and he sucks the life out of him, he becomes the Emperor again. How come if she kills him then, it doesn't make him powerful again? It was just very contradictory. I didn't understand why killing him before he was at full strength is different than killing him when he is at full strength. Anyone else with me on that? That was really strange. Let's see. Baby Yoda 2020. Absolutely. Right in, Baby Yoda. There was a theory I liked that pulling the energy from the sun and Starkiller Base did cause black holes messing with the galaxy. Oh, that sounds interesting. Palpatine is suicidal. Yeah, kill me, please. And, again, seeing Rey and Ben Solo side by side was pretty cool. Ben finally got his grandfather's original lightsaber, which that was really cool. He didn't get to use it for very long. And again, the final battle between Rey and Palpatine was so underwhelming. I would have rather if Palpatine just pulled out a lightsaber and they had a lightsaber fight. I feel like that would have been way more satisfying than just poosh, poosh, poosh. I don't know. Isaiah, I know you want to rant. I'm sorry. I won't flag you or anything if you spam the chat, but with YouTube these days, you never know. So, okay, enough about the Palpatine fight. Let's go to the fight in the sky. Now, it was cool, all the Star Destroyers and, the small Rebel fleet, or the small Resistance fleet trying to take them on. I didn't have many problems with that. It was obvious that they were severely outnumbered, but where I kind of got a little, I don't know, another thing that bothered me when they're like, oh, we'll get people to come and they will listen. Dude, when Lando showed up, like I said before, that was a little underwhelming. That should have been, they could have revealed that moment so much better, made it more impactful, like more, oh my gosh, he's here. But when they showed all those ships, that was a ridiculous amount of ships. Like, there were so many ships on the screen that the whole screen was almost black. It was so many ships you couldn't tell there were so many ships. That was a little extreme. What would have just looked better is if they had fewer but some bigger ships instead of 1,000 million tiny ships, which they had. I don't know. I really didn't like that. And then on top of that, once they arrived during the battle, everything they showed from the battle after that was still just the original Resistance fighters, and it was like it made no difference. Isaiah, have you not seen the movie? Why are you in this? I'm spoiling the crap out of it. Yeah, dude. it really needed more build-up. And I was very disappointed because even as a kid, well, for obvious reasons, in the original trilogy, the lightsaber fights weren't really that exciting, let's be honest. It was really just some stick swatting. They did it a lot better in the prequels, and the lightsaber fighting in this trilogy has been pretty solid. But for me as a kid, I thrived on those space battles, those starships battles in space. They were my favorite thing about Star Wars. And they did them so well in the original trilogy, which is crazy because there was almost no CGI. It was all practical effects. And in this new trilogy, we really haven't had any good, solid space battles. And I was so hoping for one in this. And again, it just fell flat. And, to this day, the best starship fight battle in the Disney era is Rogue One above Scarif. That was so well done. They should have took notes from that because it was just spot on with everything they did in the original trilogy. Baseball bats. Yeah, it's so funny. Like, if you go back during and watch A New Hope, when Darth Vader fights Obi-Wan, it's like watching two old dudes just like whack canes together. Like there's no energy in it at all. And it's kind of hard to believe, like, especially after watching the prequels and then watching that, and you watch Ewan McGregor doing like flips and really acrobatic stuff with the lightsaber, and then you cut to Obi-Wan in the original trilogy, and he's just like, it's funny. I mean, I get why it happened that way, but I almost wish, I don't know if you guys have seen it. I'm always talking about this on my channel, by the way, but here on YouTube, there's this group of visual effects artists that they basically reimagined that lightsaber fight between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader in A New Hope, and it's with like really great choreography and like really high intensity. It's so good. Like, go watch that if you haven't. It's so good. If you having a hard time finding it, go to my video. I did a live stream about The New Hope. If you just open that video, there's a link right in that video. Go there and watch. It's so good. But anyway, that was a long tangent. But the space battles in this movie were so underwhelming. Long story short, I wish they would have been something more epic. Yeah, there's nothing like the old trench run. And one of my, not to talk about the other movies too much, but one of my favorite things about Rogue One, and it was such a nice touch and such a good creative call, was incorporating that old footage of the X-Wing and Y-Wing fighters from New Hope into Rogue One. Oh, that was mind-blowing. That was so smart, and it was so good. All right, well, I'm starting to stretch a little bit. I want to kind of wrap this up now, but so basically, let me just talk about one more thing. So, okay, the Resistance wins, Palpatine's dead, Kylo Ren comes back, brings Rey back to life, they kiss, Ben Solo dies, and then Rey flies out, and they all meet back up. And then, okay, this scene I want to talk about, it's like the last 10 minutes in this last victory scene. First of all, they pulled a Phantom Menace. No, Phantom Menace? No, sorry, not a Phantom Menace. They pulled a Return of the Jedi Special Edition on us in this, where after they defeated the Last Order, as they were called now, they just suddenly cut to Cloud City from, Empire Strikes Back, which, okay, I don't know why they did that. And then you see the Star Destroyer falling. Clearly, I mean, it's a reference to Empire, but that was so abrupt. I was like, what? Why are they showing that? And then, then they cut to the Ewoks. I love Ewoks, so I was happy to see that. And in context, after seeing Cloud City, that made sense. But there needed to be something in between Cloud City and the Last Order being defeated, because that was a little jarring. But I love seeing the Ewoks. That was great. And I think I heard somewhere that they only show 2 Ewoks, but I think one of the Ewoks is supposed to be Wicket from Return of the Jedi. I could be wrong. And then they show, it was funny because when I first saw this and they went, Cloud City, they went Endor, I was like, if they show Naboo right now, I'm going to die. Could you imagine if they cut to a bunch of Gungans? Misa, Misa, and the ship's falling. Oh my gosh, I would have died. Okay, and then after all that was fine. Then we come back to their main planet where their rebel base is. And then there is so much fan service in this last little bit that I wanted to throw up. It was like too much. It was like, you wanted this? Here, you got this. You wanted this? Here, you got this. You wanted this? Here, you got this. You had Poe and Zuri exchange looks, kind of calling back to when he said, "Do you want to kiss?" And she says, "No." That was funny. That was fine. You have C-3PO getting his memory back, which is fine. But again, it kind of defeated the emotion. It just erased that emotional moment where he's like, "I'm going to be erased. I'm going to be no more." And the movie's over. Why give him his memory back? I don't know. And then you have Leia giving Chewie a medal, which I get that he didn't get one in A New Hope, but it just seemed kind of strange. I don't know. It just, unless it was implied that it was Han's medal and she was letting him have Han's medal as a memento, but that just felt a little crazy. They should have done Episode 9, Volume 1 and 2. Volume 1 and 2, yeah. No, I guarantee you they probably considered that for a minute just because Star Wars is so big and makes so much money. But, I mean, you can see from the movie that they're so afraid of upsetting fandom. They were probably like, no, we better just keep it to 1. We don't want to upset them anymore. Ugh, so frustrating. I'm trying to think. I swear there's something else in there that I was kind of like, oh, brother. I'm trying to blank right now. I need to go see it a third time. It was nice to see the 3 friends unite and, hug and have. You could tell there was real emotion there because it was. I almost wonder if they shot that bit on the last day of shooting because I could imagine it was probably pretty emotional on set that day with everyone knowing it was their last Star Wars movie together. Yeah, it was tough though. Ken, so I need, yeah. Oh, and then, then of course, we get the scene where Rey leaves with the Falcon. She flies to Tatooine. Now, again, I can see from a lore and fan service perspective why they went back to Tatooine. But I mean, if you think about it logically, it kind of makes no sense that she went back there. There's plenty of other places she could have hid the lightsabers, but I mean, that was for the fans. It was for the fans. She's out in the middle of the desert, looking at the building that you grew up in. And then out of nowhere, some random lady is, "What's your name?" And I knew, when she asked that, I knew what was going to happen. And I was like, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it. And she said it, and I was like, ugh. So I guess that's it, guys. Rey Skywalker. She's not really a Skywalker, but she is the Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, PJB 650. I didn't hate the movie. It just had I just had a lot of problems with it. It's definitely my least favorite of the new trilogy. And if I were to rank it, I think I would have it only above The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. I mean, this is going to be pretty low in the ranking. It's not. When I first left the movie, usually when I leave a Star Wars movie, I feel so hyped and excited, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to go back and see this moment again, this moment again, this moment again. But when I left this movie, I was just kind of like, huh, okay. I couldn't, in my mind, I couldn't think, oh, I can't wait to see this moment again. And that kind of made me feel sad. I was like, what, is this what it's come to? I mean, come on. I was really bummed out. Let's see here. She didn't have anything to do with Anakin and Jakku. Yeah, I mean, it would have made more sense if she went back to Ahch-To, that island, and left him there, because he lived there for decades. Or even, I mean, she could have put it anywhere. There's so many different places. I guess, I mean, for the fans, Tatooine, you have that double sunset, of course. You know who really got the shaft in this movie? And no one's really talking about it? R2-D2. I mean, Rey basically was like, no, you stay here. I'm taking BB-8 now. And BB-8 went with him, and C-3PO and R2-D2 is just left behind. He basically just sat there. And the only thing he did of worth was in the final battle he was with Poe. But, that was kind of a bummer. He also got the shaft in The Force Awakens. He wasn't even in it. He was asleep in a... If you remember, he was asleep at the base the whole movie. And then at the very end, he woke up to share his puzzle piece. So, poor R2-D2. I don't know, guys. I think that's all I got to say at this moment. I should have had my notes a little more organized, but again, I did not hate this movie. I'm not here to hate on this movie. I just wanted to kind of talk about some of the really big reveals and spoilers, and talk about how I felt, what my reactions were, and which ones kind of didn't sit right with me. So with that being said, I think I'm going to wrap this up. We're a little over the hour mark, and I was kind of hoping to be around an hour. But hey, if you guys join me, I'm so happy you did. I didn't expect anyone to join because it's pretty late. But thanks for joining me, chiming in on the chat. Let me just hit it one more time before I sign off, see if there's anything of worth. We got... yeah, he said JJ didn't like R2-D2. You know what? Maybe he didn't. But you know what I really think it was? JJ Abrams created BB-8. And so he was like, I want my droid to get more attention. So I'm going to put my droid in all the scenes. I guarantee you that's what happened. Kyle says, I feel like watching a Star Wars movie to get this new trilogy out of my mind. As it isn't canon, I'll probably watch Empire, Jedi, or Revenge. Hey, Kyle, here's what I recommend you do, and I'm serious. What movie besides this did you not like as much? Like, besides this one, which one is one of the Star Wars movies that you didn't like as much? I would recommend you watch that one, because you might have a new appreciation for it. You might think, this movie actually isn't that bad. I'm a big advocate for Solo, and I'm not telling you to watch that one, but I really feel like that movie kind of got the shaft because it came out so close to The Last Jedi and Avengers Endgame. So at first, people were sick of the movies, just going to the movies. And because it came out so close after The Last Jedi, there were a lot of Star Wars fans that were kind of mad at Disney and the direction Star Wars seemed to be going. So a lot of them didn't even go see Solo in the theater. And as we know, it totally tanked in the theater. But it's a really good movie. I mean, it's a lot of fun. It's a perfect adventure film. And if you guys haven't seen that, if you're in this chat or you're watching this video, please go watch Solo. It's a lot of fun. In fact, I watched it today, and there's so many moments that I love. It's a really good one. All right. Juan says, cool, man. Good talk. You seem to know the material, and even we all have a connection to the material. You made good points. Cool. Rogue One and Solo weren't bad. I just hate the new trilogy. Yeah, I mean, the new trilogy isn't my favorite. I like The Force Awakens, but that's not in my top 5. So, yeah, I'm with you, man. Perfect Young Lando, played by Glover. Yes. Uh, when I was watching Solo today, I had a thought. You know that scene when they're on Kessel and Lando's hanging out in the ship, waiting for Han and everybody to come back, and he pulls out his little hologram machine or recorder, and he's like, "The Lando Chronicles, the Calrissian Chronicles, Chapter 5, blah blah blah." It just hit me. I was like, that should be the next Disney Plus series, the Calrissian Chronicles, and it's just all of Lando's, adventures, but played by Donald Glover. How good would that show be? He's like a womanizer, gambler, cheat. That would be a great Disney Plus show. So if you're watching Disney, take note. Do it. Kyle says, Rogue One's Darth Vader scene was amazing. I saw Rogue One in theaters and Solo on Netflix. Yeah, dude, that scene in Rogue One with Vader, I think, is the greatest Darth Vader scene in all of Star Wars. They finally did him justice. It showed how sinister and evil he could be. So good. And I love that it comes at the very end, like literally the last 5 minutes. So good. So good. I love so much about Rogue One, too. Rogue One is really solid. I'd rather watch episode 3 than 9. Actually, I would too. Revenge of the Sith is way better than The Rise of Skywalker. And, it's got its problems for sure, but I would much rather watch episode 3 than 9. Yeah, could you imagine if they did that Lando show and it happens before he even met Han, so it's like all his womanizing and he's cruising around in his brand new Millennium Falcon. That would be a fun show. I'm telling you, it'd be really fun. All right, guys, let's wrap this up. Thanks so much for watching again. This was a lot of fun. And again, I did not expect as many people to join as they did, so I appreciate your comments and participation. And again, I'm going to leave this up on my channel. It's kind of a regular reaction and spoiler discussion. So if you're watching this in the rerun, feel free to give it a thumbs up if you liked it. And please consider subscribing. Since my reviews are really limited to a 1 minute in length, and I'm going to stand by that. I'm never going to break my 1 minute movie review format. That's kind of my whole spiel. That's the name of my channel. What I might do, though, is I might do more of these where if I really have a lot more to say, I might just do a live stream and talk spoilers. This is what I love to do. It's so much fun. And you guys have been great talking about it and joining in on the conversation. So again, thanks for watching. Feel free to hit that like button and subscribe if you like. Thanks so much, guys. And until next time, may the Force be with you.